Welcome back to our show from Kuala Lumpur, where we're discussing the future of Malaysian politics and more specifically whether or not my guest today can displace the grip of the ruling party. The former Deputy Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim is here with me. Let's get back to our questions. And actually our chat room is active very much with the debate. And one of our viewers in there from Malaysia says, Malaysia should play a bigger role in promoting Islamic banking globally.
We have this potential because we were quite ahead, began it in the 80s. Clear regulatory framework introduced by the central bank, and Malaysia is quite known to the Middle East in particular. But I think whether we succeed would be contingent upon the reforms that's taking place. They want an independent judiciary. They want a relatively more efficient system of government. They don't want a system where cronyism and corruption prevails. At least in Malaysia, is considered to be rather endemic. So I believe that we have enormous potential to tap these resources, particularly from the Arab world, but we will have to improve and undertake these necessary reforms, improving our institutions of governance.
Dr. Anwar, a couple of emails that touch on the issue of the racial divisions and the racial differences in Malaysia. This one actually from Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, from Joyrama Apusami, who says the government has admitted that Indians in Malaysia are economically disadvantaged. Should the government implement a quota system in all areas for Indians?
I am, and the policy of the party is more in favor of affirmative action based on needs. The vast majority of the Malays and the indigenous people who are poor. There are pockets of poverty among the Chinese. There are problems with the Indians, and particularly in the estate sector. We have to deal with them. This is a relatively a rich country. We have enough resources to deal with the problem. We don't need to talk about quotas. We need to have affirmative action and accept the principle of distributive justice and help those who are in dire need of assistance.
Beyond the financial disparity, do you feel that every citizen of Malaysia is equal?
Right now, there are a lot of consternation on this matter because...
I mean socially, in terms of justice and everything else.
Yes, I think the law, although a lot of questions pertaining to the professionalism of the police force, perceived to be inefficient and corrupt, but otherwise, the constitutional guarantees are there. The problem is some administrative action that seem to be running contrary to the spirit of the Constitution. So there's a strong feeling among the poor, marginalized, particularly among the Chinese and Indians, that there has been strong discrimination against them. So
an email that came in that was interesting here from Digi in Malaysia says, when will it be possible for a non-Malay to be Prime Minister?
It will be possible in the long term and the medium term, but it depends on Malaysians. I don't believe this is strongly a concern of most Chinese and Indians. Their concern is they're being treated equally, they're given justice, that policies, the government is more transparent, more accountable. This is the general concern of non-Malays or non-Muslims here. And for now, I think they would expect and they would certainly accept the fact that a Muslim would continue in the medium term to continue as Prime Minister of this country.
One of the things we've touched on while here in Kuala Lumpur is the issue of media freedoms and the censorship of the arts and media. What changes could you envisage? It seems that, judging by the people I talk to involved in the media, they really are restricted in what they can say and do.
What needs to be done is to dismantle these repressive laws. We have umpteen laws against university students, trade unions, the media, societies and civil society organizations. We can't get a license for our party organ.
Why didn't you, when you were Deputy Prime Minister, why didn't you undertake those kind of reforms?
I was a Deputy Prime Minister, Riz. Don't forget that. I have a very strong boss, but my views were quite known. I wrote, in fact, some of these views and published in the Asian Renaissance about the necessity for media freedom and not to insult the intelligence of Asians by assuming that they are not ready. They are just like kindergarten students, not qualified to be exposed to what is termed as a free media. And they always say, well, it takes the United States 200 years, so must we take 200 years? Then we must be damn stupid or blatantly ignorant. And I don't share that view at all.
You've become quite one of Malaysia's most prominent blogging figures now as well. Who do you write for? Who is it you're targeting?
General Malaysians, particularly those who are not having this exposure to the alternative views. We have a problem with the media, particularly the Malay language media, which is very rigidly controlled by the ruling party. The English media has some semblance of freedom, and the Chinese language media has more freedom. So in terms of media rates, it is the Malays who are being discriminated against. I have to deal with them then.
Now, it's interesting because on other issues outside, I know you've spent a lot of time outside the country. You've been quite intent on trying to improve East-West relations, particularly in trying to change the global perception of Islam. If you look at the kind of things that have been happening, the situation in Mumbai, for example, now, the situation we see with Pakistan and its perception, for example, in the West, what do you see being done to change the image of Islam globally? I mean, successfully. Is there anything?
It is both. It is also the problem in the West in terms of Islamophobia. You see the reports say in the United States media, say the Fox News, for example, takes a blatant disregard for the truth and objectivity, which I don't share because I view more positively even about Judaism or Hinduism or Christianity.
Will it change with Barack Hussein Obama?
Well, there's a lot of hope that at least in this man, is a willingness to listen and to engage. And, but I don't think that it is quite correct to apportion the entire blame on the West. We, among the Muslims, particularly the Muslim world, what's stopping the Muslim countries to recognize the necessity of freedom? Other than Indonesia or Turkey,
right, very
few countries do actually acknowledge the fact that freedom is something sacrosanct, even in Islamic theology, in the higher objectives of the Sharia. You must observe and respect the notion of freedom, the maqasid of Sharia. But this has been totally ignored.
You talk about how Sharia has been a part of Malaysian society. There's an email question that came in from a viewer here in Malaysia, preferred to remain anonymous, who says, what are your thoughts on Sharia influencing the current democratic system?
In Malaysia, Islam is the religion of federation, but there's a clear constitutional guarantee to respect the freedom of other religions. You must give space and latitude for Muslims to practice their religion. But we draw the line. No way can this be used to impose their belief and rules and the Sharia upon the non-Muslims. That is made clear. I don't foresee any problem in that regard.
You talked about the economic crisis affecting Malaysia, and you say the ruling party is ignoring the signs here. In terms of how the global markets are going, how vulnerable is Malaysia?
It is, we depend on foreign direct investments. You've seen this startling performance of Malaysia in the 80s and particularly in the 90s. It's due to foreign direct investments. And we're not getting the investments now. In the 90s, we were #1 in the ASEAN countries. Now we've gone far below, #4, #5. In fact, we, other than Burma, of course, has got the least investments from overseas. This is, of course, a problem. Then, of course, the market is vulnerable because it's also open in an open environment. But I think, notwithstanding this, there are measures that need to be taken. Malaysia has to remain attractive. It has to remain attractive by being more competitive, by changing some obsolete economic policies. This is where the ruling party has refused to budge and move. And therefore, we've been dragging ourselves. And most people believe that this country is manned by autopilot now, short of reasonable policies.
Dr. Anwar, thank you very much for being with us. Thanks for your time. And thank you for being with us. That's it for our special coverage of Asian issues from our broadcast center in Kuala Lumpur. We'll see you next time in Washington, D.C. From me and the team here and in the U.S., goodbye.